Greetings YouTubers, James here again, and this time a video response to Toking Tommy, his giveaway for his 1,000 plus, I would add, subscribers. So firstly, well done Tom, it's a great achievement, and you've provided many a splendid video and very informative, especially like your over-the-counter British blends. That's a great little series. And so yes, he's asked us to talk about our blends that we didn't enjoy so much, ones that we would rather forget. So I'm going to keep this fairly brief, because I've been very lucky actually. I haven't had the misfortune to have that many blends. I have tried quite a few, I would think. It's been many years now that I've been smoking a pipe, and but there have been two standout blends that really for me it was very quick to decide what to talk about. And most recently, the blend that I would have to say is my number one disappointment, and this is the key thing, it was the disappointment factor, not so much the elements of the blend but the disappointment. And this occurred on well, it was after a trip to Prague actually, where I had purchased a variety of different things, like some cigars, and various tinned pipe tobaccos, and one that I purchased was called Stanislaw Pilot Blend. Now I have to say, one thing that drew me to it was the wonderful tin art. It had this lovely lovely picture of a pilot, not surprisingly, on the front, and the artwork, it sort of drew me to it straight away. And I thought to myself, well, this is not a blend I've ever seen before, and so really it was a for what I was actually paying for it, I thought, oh, this is going to be a dead cert. So I purchased the said item, 50-gram tin, and it wasn't until I was back home, and possibly a few days after returning home, cracked the tin, and my initial thoughts were, being, I have to say, it was quite a fairly sort of English looking, if it can be so, a very English looking design on the tin, and it led me to believe that perhaps it could be an English blend or a Virginia blend or something along those lines. But on cracking the tin, it was in fact Cavendish mixture, and it was quite clearly an aromatic mixture, which I thought, well, that's okay. I'll go with that. And it seemed, looking at the tobacco, it seemed to be, as you'd expect, it was not over moist, not too dry, a mixture of light and dark. But rather inevitably, as with many aromatics, it did have quite a pleasant sort of fruity aroma. Probably even I would go as far to say as perhaps sort of forest fruits. And I thought, well, this could be quite something. But in fact, it was pretty terrible. And in fact, not even on lighting up, you know, that it was sort of there for maybe a couple of puffs, a very sort of chemically sweet, sickly flavour, such as you could call it, and it was very disappointing, mainly because it wasn't what I was led to believe it was. There was no description on the tin of what kind of tobacco it was. So for that reason alone, just the disappointment factor of it not being something a bit more robust and flavoursome, and the fact I'd bought it all the way back from Prague, that makes it one of my most disappointing tobaccos. And I did actually do a bit of a review on it, and I think I was sort of kind of favourable about it, but in hindsight it was pretty awful. And I think what I actually did with it was, I think at the time I said I was going to add it to a collection of other sort of aromatics and see if I could make make something from it, but I did do that, and it is I have a huge jar of sort of mixed aromatics. So anyway, Stanislaw Pilot Blend was one that I was most disappointed with and didn't enjoy at all. Probably wouldn't recommend. So second to that, not quite as disappointing, but takes me right back to when I first started smoking a pipe, which is, as I say, many years ago. And as with a lot of people when they're starting out, you're possibly tempted by the sweet smelling aromatics, as I was. I had a tiny pipe and not much idea, and I purchased some Baron's vanilla cream, and it was the ready rubbed. So I proceeded to make all the usual mistakes. Got a terrible tongue bite. You know, the stuff was actually, I remember the first pouch of the stuff I had, it was actually really quite moist. And so, by the time I got it burning, it was red hot, and I had all that sort of problem. So, that being said, again, it was a similar thing with the aromatics in that it was had a lovely aroma to it, and actually it was pretty good. I think I had a short period where actually it was reasonable, but not for very long. So I thought, well, quite a number of years later, I thought, well, I was actually revisiting quite a few tobaccos, and in fact this was one that I revisited, and I tried both the flake and the ready rubbed again, and I considered myself to be slightly more experienced, and was able to give it a proper chance, and actually you know, get the stuff smoking properly. And it was an improvement on my initial disastrous attempts with it, and I was kind of hoping for some sort of, because I've heard a lot about it and a lot of people love it, and it works for them, but unfortunately again for me it's a delightful smell and very popular for the first few sort of puffs, but then for me it just seemed to become very ashy, tended to burn sort of uncontrollably, and generally speaking, to give you know, a fairly you know, a very poor smoke for me anyway. So despite my sort of best efforts, I think in fact I've probably revisited it probably more than once, and I've never been able to get much more from it. So so those are my two tobaccos that, or blends that I would say are ones that I shan't be revisiting again. The Stanislaw Pilot Blend is definitely one I won't be trying again, and the Baron's Vanilla Cream sounds lovely, and I would love it to be what it says, but just not to be. So there we are. There's my two blends that I have been troublesome. So I hope that sums it up reasonably for you. So until next time, keep the pipes puffing, keep the cameras rolling. Cheerio for now.